Luke chapter 5. Jesus chooses the first disciples. One day, Jesus was standing by the Sea of Galilee. The people crowded around him and listened to the word of God. Jesus saw two boats at the edge of the water. They had been left there by a fisherman who were washing their nets. He got into a boat that belonged to Simon. Jesus asked him to go out a little way from the shore. Then he sat down in the boat and taught the people. When he finished speaking, he turned to Simon. He said, "Go out into deep water. Let the nets down so you can catch some fish." Simon answered, "Master, we've worked hard all night and haven't caught anything, but because you say so, I will let down the nets." When they had done so, they caught a large number of fish. There were so many that their nets began to break, so they motioned to their partners in the other boat to come and help them. They came and filled both boats so full that they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees. "Go away from me, Lord," he said. "I am a sinful man." He and everyone with him were amazed at the number of fish they had caught. So were James and John, the son of Zebedee, who worked with Simon. Then Jesus said to Simon, "Don't be afraid. From now on, you will catch people." So they pulled their boats up on shore. Then they left everything and followed him. Jesus heals a man with a skin disease. While Jesus was in one of the towns, a man came along. He had a skin disease all over his body. When he saw Jesus, he fell with his face to the ground. He begged him, "Lord, if you are willing to make me clean, you can do it." Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. "I am willing to do it," he said. "Be clean." Right away, the disease left him. Then Jesus ordered him, "Don't tell anyone. Go and show yourself to the priest. Offer the sacrifices that Moses commanded. It will be a witness to the priest and the people that you are clean." But the news about Jesus spread even more, so crowds of people came to hear him. They also came to be healed of their sickness. But Jesus often went away to be by himself and pray. Jesus heals a man who could not walk. One day Jesus was teaching. Pharisees and teachers of the law were sitting there. They had come from every village of Galilee and from Judea and Jerusalem. They heard that the Lord had given Jesus the power to heal the sick. Some men carrying a man who could not walk. He was lying on a mat. They tried to take him to the house to place him in front of Jesus. They could not find a way to do this because of the crowd, so they went up on the roof. Then they lowered the man on his mat through the opening in the roof tiles. They lowered him into the middle of the crowd, right in front of Jesus. When Jesus saw that they had faith, he said, "Friend, your sins are forgiven." The Pharisees and the teachers of the law began to think, "Who is this fellow who says such an evil thing? Who can forgive sins but God alone?" Jesus knew what they were thinking, so he asked, "Why are you thinking these things in your heart? Is it easier to say, 'Your sins are forgiven,' or to say, 'Get up and walk'? I want you to know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins." So he spoke to the man who could not walk. "I tell you," he said, "get up, take your mat and go home." Right away, the man stood up in front of them. He took his mat and went home praising God. Everyone was amazed and gave praise to God. They were filled with wonder. They said, "We have seen unusual things today." Jesus chooses Levi. After this, Jesus left the house. He saw a tax collector sitting at the tax booth. The man's name was Levi. "Follow me," Jesus said to him. Levi got up, left everything, and followed me. Then Levi gave a huge dinner for Jesus at his house. A large crowd of tax collectors and others were eating with them. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law complained to Jesus' disciples. He said, "Why do you eat and drink with tax collectors and sinners?" Jesus asked them, "Those who are healthy don't need a doctor. Sick people do. I have not come to get those who think they are right with God to follow me. I had to get sinners to turn away from their sins." Jesus is asked about fasting. Some of the people who were there said to Jesus, "John's disciples often pray and go without eating. So do the disciples of the Pharisees. But yours go on eating and drinking." Jesus answered, "Can you make the guests of the groom go without eating while he was with them? But the time will come when the groom will be taken away from them, and those two will fast." Then Jesus gave them an example. He said, "People don't tear a patch from new clothes and sew it out on old clothes. If they do, they will tear the new clothes. Also, the patch from the new clothes will not match the old clothes. People don't pour new wine into old wineskins. If they do, the new wine will burst the skins. The wine will run out and the wineskins will be destroyed. No new wine must be poured into new wineskins. After people drink old wine, they don't want the new. They say, the old wine is better. Luke chapter 6. Jesus is Lord of the Sabbath day. One Sabbath day, Jesus was walking through the grain fields. His disciples began to break off some head of grains. They rubbed them in their hands and ate them. Some of the Pharisees said, "It is against the law to do this on the Sabbath. What are you doing? Why are you doing it?" Jesus answered them, "Haven't you ever read about what David did? He and his men were hungry. He entered the house of God and took the holy bread. He ate the bread that only priests were allowed to eat. David also gave some to his men." Then Jesus said to them, "The Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath day." On another Sabbath day, Jesus went into the synagogue and was teaching. A man whose right hand was weak and twisted was there. The Pharisees and the teachers of the law were trying to find fault with Jesus, so they watched him closely. They wanted to see if he would heal on the Sabbath day. But Jesus knew what they were thinking. He spoke to a man who had the weak and twisted hand. "Get up and stand in front of Jesus," he said. So the man got up and stood there. Then Jesus said to them, "What does the law say we should do on the Sabbath day? Should we do good or should we do evil? Should we save life or should we destroy it?" He looked around at all of them. Then he said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." He did, and his hand was as good as new. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law were very angry. They began to talk to each other about what they might do to Jesus. Jesus chooses the 12 apostles. On one of those days, Jesus went out to a mountainside to pray. He spent the night praying to God. When morning came, he called for his disciples to come to him. He chose 12 of them and made them apostles. Simon was one of them. Jesus gave him the name Peter. They were also Simon's brother Andrew, James, John, Philip, and Bartholomew. And there were Matthew, Thomas, James, and son of Alphaeus. There were also Simon, who had called the Zealot, and Judas, son of James. Judas Iscariot was one of them too. He was the one who would later hand Jesus over to his enemies. Jesus gives blessings and warnings. Jesus went down the mountainside with them and stood on a level place. A large crowd of his disciples were there. A large number of other people were there too. They came from all over Judea, including Jerusalem. They also came from the coast of Tyre and Sidon. They had all come to hear Jesus and to be healed of their sicknesses. People who were troubled by evil spirits were made well. Everyone tried to touch Jesus. Power was coming from him and healing them all. Jesus looked at his disciples. He said to them, "Blessed are you who are needy. God's kingdom belongs to you. Blessed are you who are hungry now. You'll be satisfied. Blessed are you who are sad now. You will laugh. Blessed are you when people hate you, when they have nothing to do with you and say bad things about you, and when they treat your name as something evil. They do all this because you are followers of the Son of Man. Their people treated the prophets the same way long ago. When these things happen to you, be glad and jump for joy. You will receive many blessings in heaven. But how terrible it will be for you who are rich. You have already had your easy life. How terrible for you who are well fed now. You will go hungry. How terrible for you who will laugh now. You will cry and be sad. How terrible for you when everyone says good things about you. Their people treated the false prophets the same way long ago. Love your enemies. But here's what I tell you who hear me. Love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who call down curses on you. And pray for those who treat you badly. Suppose someone hits you on one cheek. Turn your other cheek to him also. Suppose someone takes your coat. Don't stop him from taking your shirt. Give to everyone who asks you. And if anyone takes what belongs to you, don't ask to get it. Do to others as you want them to do to you. Suppose you love those who love you. Should anyone praise you for that? Even sinners love those who love them. And suppose you do good to those who are good to you. Should anyone praise you for that? Even sinners do that. And suppose you lend money to those who can pay you back. Should anyone praise you for that? Even a sinner lends to sinners, expecting them to pay everything back. But love your enemies, do good to them, lend to them without expecting to get anything back. Then you will receive a lot in return, and you will be sons of the Most High God. He is kind to people who are evil and are not thankful. So have mercy, just as your Father has mercy. Be fair when you judge others. If you do not judge others, then you will not be judged. If you do not find others guilty, then you will not be found guilty. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. A good amount will be poured into your lap. It will be pressed down, shaken together, and running over. The same amount you give will be measured out to you. Jesus also gave them another example. He asked, "Can a blind person lead another blind person? Won't they both fall into a pit? Students are not better than their teachers, but everyone who is completely changed will be like his teacher. You look at the bit of sawdust in your friend's eye, but you pay no attention to a piece of wood in your own eye. How can you say to your friend, 'Let me take the bit of sawdust out of your eye'? How can you say this while there is a piece of wood in your own eye? You pretender, first take the piece of wood out of your own eye, and you will be able to see clearly to take the bit of sawdust out of your friend's eye." A tree and its fruit. A good tree doesn't bear bad fruit, and a bad fruit doesn't bear good fruit. You can tell each tree by the kind of fruit it bears. People do not pick figs from thorns, and they don't pick grapes from bushes. A good man says good things. These come from the good that it is put away in his heart. An evil man says evil things. These come from the evil that is put away in his heart. Their mouths say everything that is in their heart. The wise and foolish builders. Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and still don't do what I say? Some people come to me and listen to me and do what I say. I will show you what they are like. They are like people who build a house. He digs down deep and sets it on solid rock. When a flood comes, the river rushes against the house, but the water can't shake it. The house is well built. But here's what happens when people listen to my words and do not obey them. They are like someone who builds a house on soft ground instead of solid rock. The moment the river rushes against that house, it falls down. It is completely destroyed.